ancient European countryside village, where stone-roofed houses were covered in moss, and the farmyard always smelled of dry straw, there lived a hen named Godie. Godie possessed shimmering golden feathers, standing out in the farmyard like a freshly polished coin. She firmly believed she was born to be superior to the other hens. Godie's eggs were larger, her walk more arrogant, and her gaze always carried an excess of pride. But behind that glittering appearance was an unpleasant personality. Godie never admitted fault. Every morning, when the farmer scattered grain across the yard, Godie always pushed ahead to claim the best spot. If she accidentally knocked over the water jar, she immediately blamed the wind. If the straw lay in disarray, it was because other hens ran around too much. To Godie, mistakes always belonged to others, while she herself was always right. As time passed, Godie's constant blaming began to leave its mark. The other hens in the coop no longer laughed and chatted every morning. When something happened, they quietly kept their distance from Godie, afraid that simply standing nearby would make them the one blamed instead. Gradually, Godie realized she was always sitting alone in a corner of the yard where sunlight arrived the latest. Her golden feathers were still bright, but the space around her was empty and cold. Loneliness crept into every afternoon, even as she kept telling herself that the fault was not hers. One day, as the autumn wind swept across the old stone roofs, old Rowan, an aged rooster from afar, visited the farm. His feathers had faded with the years, and his sharp eyes seemed to have seen through many life stories. Old Rowan quickly noticed something unusual. In the chicken coop, on one side were bursts of laughter. On the other sat Godie, quiet and withdrawn, carefully smoothing her feathers, as if to hide her sadness. He walked over and asked in a warm, steady voice why she was sitting alone. Godie lifted her head, claiming that the other hens were jealous of her beauty and her talent. Old Rowan did not argue. He simply nodded slowly, like someone who understood that behind such pride was an emptiness steadily growing. Old Rowan sat down beside Godie. His old wings lightly touched the cool ground. After a moment of silence, he began to tell an old story. Long ago, in a forest near ancient villages, there lived a peacock named Lord Plume, famous for his brilliant tail and proud stride. Lord Plume always believed that he was perfect. One careless moment caused a fire to break out in the dry forest, but instead of admitting his mistake, the peacock blamed an innocent little rabbit. Believing that lie, the animals drove the rabbit out of the forest, and Lord Plume stood there, his expression without the slightest remorse. Godie listened. The crest on her head trembled slightly. Old Rowan continued slowly. The truth never sleeps forever. Before long, the animals discovered that Lord Plume himself was the one who caused the disaster. From that day on, no one wanted to talk or stand near the peacock anymore. The tale was still magnificent, but Lord Plume lived in loneliness, without a single friend. Hearing this, Godie felt her heart grow heavy. The story was like a mirror, reflecting straight into her soul. She recalled the times she had hastily denied her faults. She remembered the sorrowful looks of the other hens, and for the first time, she understood that her loneliness was not caused by others, but by the way she had lived and spoken all these years. That night, Godie barely slept. The sound of wind slipping through the stone coop felt longer and colder than ever. She lay still, watching her golden feathers dimly reflect under the moonlight, and for the first time, she saw them as no longer bringing a sense of pride. In Godie's mind appeared familiar faces, eyes she had once blamed, moments when they turned away in silence. She realized she had tried to maintain a perfect image to the point of losing something more important than admiration itself. When dawn just touched the farmyard, Godie stood up and walked toward the other hens gathered near the feeding trough. Her voice was softer than usual, but clear and resolute. Godie admitted all her mistakes, from the spilled water jar to the messy straw, from the broken egg to the words that had hurt others. No blaming, no excuses, only the truth. That moment stretched on in silence. Then a small hen stepped forward, saying that what they needed was not a perfect Godie, but an honest one. From that day on, Godie changed. She learned to say, "That was my fault," without bowing her head in shame. Strangely enough, each time she admitted a mistake, she felt lighter. Conversations returned. Laughter filled the farmyard. Godie understood that true strength does not lie in never being wrong, but in the courage to admit mistakes and live sincerely. From then on, Godie was no longer remembered only for her shining golden feathers, but for a heart that had learned humility. In that ancient European village, her story became a reminder, gentle yet deep. A person does not need to be perfect to be loved. Anyone can make mistakes, but not everyone has the courage to say the words of apology. A mistake does not end the value of an individual. It only opens an opportunity to grow. True strength does not lie in always being right, but in honesty, in daring to face oneself and make things right. The story shows that mistakes are unavoidable in life, but how people face their mistakes is what determines their true value. Avoiding responsibility may save face, for a moment, but in the long run, it will cost trust, friendship, and respect. On the other hand, daring to admit mistakes requires courage and humility. That is what helps people grow and be trusted and loved by others. Being honest with oneself is the foundation of all lasting relationships. The story reminds us that strength does not lie in never being wrong, but in the ability to admit mistakes, correct them, and live sincerely every day.